We are recording to the cloud, my friend. I think. Keep your ears to fingers crossed.
Rumor has it
Yeah.
that we are recording to the cloud. What's going on, dude?
Oh man, shit, dude. It was a chill day. It's like every time you called me or anybody called me, like, "What are you doing?" I'm cutting down trees. You're like, "How many fucking trees do you have?" Well, dude, I don't like have the correct tools to be doing yard work really. So I'm like, here's a shovel. I'll whack a tree with that. And so me and a sawzall, like cutting down trees that are way too large for a sawzall.
Well, I'm like, dude, do you live in the fucking rainforest all of a sudden? Like,
No, but I don't know if you remember, like there was that entire just overgrown wall of trees and bushes and just shit, vines and stuff. So we've been slowly cutting down because I don't have nowhere to put that shit. So I've got to wrap it in bundles and put it on the front yard next to the road. So they'll actually take it away because we got a letter last time. They were like, "You got to wrap that shit up." I was like, "Damn it!" So we can only do a little bit at a time. So it's really drawn out, as is
so,
this.
so what you do is you take everything out, you chop it all up, you bundle it all up, all of it. And then the night before garbage comes, you go and you drop one bundle off in front of every single one of your neighbors' houses and let them fucking pick it all up in one fucking foul swoop, dude.
Well, I put 11 bundles out and they took it. So apparently there's no limit. But
Oh, okay. So there's no limit. It's
I,
just, it's limited by your laziness. Okay, cool.
you nailed it. And I've also found, of course, well, like my kid wants to do whatever, we're doing, whatever adults are playing with that's his new fucking toy. So he learned the word sharp. I'll tell you that much. So it's like, cool, sawzall. And he just screams, and I'm like, it's sharp. And then now he's scared of it. So everything I'm holding like a wooden spoon that he wants. I'm like, it's sharp. He's like, fuck.
Yeah. No.
Whatever works.
Did he get like stabbed by something or jabbed by something? Like, how does he know what sharp is all of a sudden?
Because I put the fear of God in him. Because he literally picked up the sawzall, and I'm like, I don't think he can hold it down or whatever. But he grabbed the blade, and so even just without it turning on, the actual saw, the teeth, I'm like, dude, I can just see a finger, or something. I'm like, it scared me to death. So I freaked and got on him, and then then I turned it on, and he didn't like that. So now everything sharp is scary.
Dude, you're lucky, man. My kid, no fucking fear, bro. Like at all about anything. Like, yeah, he's not afraid of my wife or I. Anything that we say, falling down, like hot, anything. Like he's just like, uh-huh.
I'm good.
I'm like, you're definitely my fucking kid. Like,
I was gonna say, he got that from you though. Shit.
yeah, he's just like, fuck it, man. I'm
Yeah.
gonna fly to the sun.
I'll brush it off. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm gonna fly to the sun. I'm good.
Fly to the sun. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know which way I'd like it better. Like, I find that I'm kind of the paranoid one about him, like, really getting hurt. And my wife's more just like, he'll be all right. Boys fall. And I'm just like, not my boy. Like, I just don't want to have to deal with that because I know panic. If he really gets hurt, I'm gonna lose it. I'm passing out or something. It's not gonna be pretty.
Like, I definitely don't want anything bad to happen to your kid at all.
Right.
But I do kind of want to see like any interaction that you would have at a doctor's office or any kind of office where you're taking him in to like explain something, like, and they're gonna be like, this ain't your kid. Like, whose kid did you steal? Like,
I would have to bring my wife. Literally.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh shit. So yeah, that's literally all we've been doing, man. It's been, obviously we're getting back to work, so I'm getting in that mindset, which is good and bad, man. I'm ready to just get this shit over with. You know what I mean? Like get back into some sort of routine.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm at. It's just kind of like I'm trying to trick myself into thinking that shit's normal out there, and wearing masks is just a new part of the attire, and other than that, just being careful and washing my hands more than usual, and whatever.
I don't know, man. It's like every time I'm like, okay, we're kind of like, you know, progressing to a certain point. I'm like, then another part of my brain kicks in and I'm like, okay, no, you're stupid. Like, because the thing that fucks me up more than anything is it's not really anything I see on our news, like American news, or like usually like if I'm gonna watch the news, I generally tend to watch like BBC America, or not BBC America obviously, but I watch BBC News
Right,
because it's not really like directed in any political sense towards the United States. It's literally
a little
just
less propaganda. Yeah.
yeah, it's just literally like this is what's going on in the United States, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, right.
The thing that scares the shit out of me though is like seeing pictures out of like Wuhan, China,
Yeah, dude.
like how they're trying to like get life back together again, and I'm just like I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, so
That's what's coming.
yeah, like that's our next step. Cool, that looks
I'll say
miserable.
I'll say this just because I lived there, so firsthand experience. Yeah, that freaks me out. But I also know that in where we live, you know what I'm saying, in Kentucky, like especially our city, Louisville, like the population is not even. It's so complete. The amount of people in China, you can't go out anywhere and not be around 100 people at any point in time in close, vicinity. So
Yeah,
I feel like it looks more intense. It is intense there. Fucking A. I just think it's escalated compared to what we're gonna go back into. Like even just so at work, we've got stores in Kentucky and Indiana. The difference is humongous. In Kentucky, I've yet to have a single person come in not wearing a mask. I've yet to have we're only allowing 3 people in. I've yet to have anyone just walk in and look at 3 people and then step outside. Everybody follows the rules. In Indiana, we had to put up big ass signs, wear your mask 3 at a time. People are still just walking in like high-fiving and shit, like no mask, like sneezing. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. So I feel
dude.
like we got it pretty good here. And
Yeah,
we
I
bad
mean,
Kentucky, but I love Louisville, so
right. Like, well, I mean, I'm not going on the fucking quarantine rant.
yeah, fair enough.
I feel like I feel like every conversation I have with like everyone else, I'm like the fucking crazy, aluminum hat guy compared to everybody else, and I'm like, am I missing something? Like, you
No.
know, because this would be like my last thing about it. Like, so like because of how my brain works, like I did like research on like the Spanish flu. That's like what everybody like kind of is comparing, this to. And the Spanish flu had like a 3% mortality rate, right? But the Spanish flu is like fucked up because the Spanish flu, it attacked 18 to 25-year-olds. Like that's where it like did its killing. And it did that because like the way that it attacked the body was once it got into the system, they had good immune systems. So the immune system, it actually like jacked up their immune system to a point where the immune system just burned through the organs and killed them that way.
Damn.
Well, whereas this one attacks like the older population, and generally, like I really feel like they're going to come out and they're going to say that this has more to do with like your sugar, the sugar in your body. That's kind of what it's attacking, because Americans are getting hit hard as fuck, and it's like kind of all over the board.
Yeah, right.
And I really think that they're going to come out and say it has to do with like your sugar levels and shit like that. But
Well, that makes sense. Look what we eat as a country. You know what I mean?
right. So like, the one propaganda thing that you always heard at the beginning of this thing is it's like, oh, it's no worse than the common flu. I didn't know this. The common flu, like it kills 1 out of every 1,000 people that get infected. 1.
Right, right.
So the Spanish flu killed 3 people out of every 100. So they're saying that this is between, the flu and the Spanish flu, right?
Right.
Well, if you look, like they don't talk about this, but like if you go to the CDC website and you look at the numbers, like the ones that like go into the hospital, the mortality rate is like, we're pushing like 10.
Yeah, right.
10 for every 100 that go in are not coming out.
Not coming out. Yeah.
And that could be definitely like, overwhelmed healthcare system. And we're also not testing like healthy people right now. So we don't really know what the mortality rate really is.
Yeah, we got no clue. Yeah, that's true.
But, so I just kind of like watch the areas that are like, they've already been hit. They're already trying to kind of rebuild and how they're doing it. And to kind of look at that to say, okay, should I be shitting myself or should I be whatever.
Right. Well, dude, I was with you, man. Like if aluminum hats, I was on that team for sure. But then it was like, well, I didn't have an option. Like if I wanted to keep my job and whatever, it's like, okay, it's kind of go time. So I didn't have an option. So I had to kind of almost talk myself into not the skeptic side, and I'm definitely not blowing this shit off. Like it's the real deal. You heard my spiel on the mini episode, but I've had to literally almost trick myself into going, no, it's okay. As long as you do these things, I'll be fine. You know what I'm saying? Because I have to go out. But I mean, luckily I'm still kind of in my own little area. So it's still scary as fuck.
Yeah. So
people are just going out back to normal. They're gonna fuck us all. So
yeah,
wash your hands, dirty bitches.
Right. So for this and other safety tips from the BOTE basements plural right now.
That's right.
You can check us out on our social media sites.
That's right. That was good. Yeah, man. What is it on our Facebook and Instagram? You can hit us up at
Based on True Events Podcast.
On the Twatter,
we are Podcast BOTE, BOTE.
That's right. We got our YouTube channel up and rocking, so you can go watch some of our videos of our ugly mugs.
Right. Based on True Events Podcast on YouTube. We got a few episodes with our faces on there. We got some, we're easing into this world of I don't know why any of you would give a shit about seeing either one of us. We've had a ton of requests of people wanting to have us on YouTube even before quarantine. So
yeah, well, I'm looking forward to having our good quality speaker, our good actual audio quality back, being in the same room. It's easier to play off of each other, but we're going to add video to that as well. So we're going to keep for those of you that want to look at us for whatever reason. We're going to keep that going. It'll just be, we'll both be in the same room eventually. So,
So that world comes is what we're building to. Josh and I actually, with them kind of loosen a good word, lightening the restrictions in the world. We've discussed getting back into the basement and, so maybe, not next episode we'll be in the basement, but
sooner or later. Yeah. I mean, dude, it's a matter of we got to be comfortable and our wives have to be okay with it. And everything's got to be copacetic. I mean, we'll keep our distance, sorry, dude, I can't hug you next time I see you, which, that sucks, but hey.
I'll get through it. I'll get through my day.
All right.
So,
what else we got going on?
I wrote for BOTE. We got the 4 suggestions. Pick your top 2 suggestions, and we're going to do all 4. It's just you're picking the order.
Which one do you hear first?
So you're suggesting the episodes, and then you're picking the order that you want to hear them. And the idea being that now that we are well over 7,000 downloads, and our audience base is up over a few hundred, I think. We are getting to the point where it's like, you know what, you guys helped us build this podcast, and it is as much yours as it is ours. We want it to be the product that you enjoy.
Fuck yeah, I love that.
So that's kind of the route we're going.
So I think we have that posted on all of the social media platforms for the most part, but you can find it. And hit us up on Gmail. If you're not on social media, we'll send you the 4 suggestions via email. Like, reach out. You can find us. That's what we're getting at, right? I mean, shit, we're able to be found, and we want to be found. We want to interact and talk to you guys. So
Yeah. So
keep that shit coming for real.
and we do have a pretty good amount of interaction between people, even in the fucking midst of the COVID.
Yeah, the COVID.
The COVID. So
Yeah, it's been good, man. Let's see. So yeah, we're still gonna do our Waverly episode once they let us out.
yeah,
Eventually, that's our field trip.
can't wait to go to a tuberculosis hospital after quarantine.
I tell you, it's really. I know it's so funny. I was telling somebody about that the other day, and they were like, "Huh? They don't live in Louisville, so they don't really." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess when I say it like that, the way you just said it, not a great idea."
It's like, really? So for Josh's spooky good time field trip episode.
Yeah, for sure. And before you jump into it, man, I don't know. We didn't really discuss if we were going to talk about it. We just launched the site, so I figured let's, our Patreon.com site where we're basically we didn't know how to. Well, we're bribing the shit out of you guys, basically.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I mean, to a degree. So I'll kind of preface this with, so other podcasts, they kind of do, you'll hear them advertise things. They'll have certain, kind of plugs here or there. It's basically whatever the podcast agrees to when it comes to publicity or advertisements, or you can kind of be funded by your audience. And so we decided that instead of maybe throwing commercials in the middle of episodes or things along those lines, we were going to start with maybe, letting you guys donate or become part of the boat crew.
Yeah, I mean, so it literally just got launched today, and we both kind of were hesitant on this because, well, fuck, dude, it's just, it is what it is. It's just not kind of how we roll and how we pictured. But truth be told, we want you guys to keep listening, and so we need to improve what we're doing. And the only way to do that, unfortunately, is to get better quality equipment, to get software, things that cost money that we didn't really expect. So the donations, every single penny goes right back into the podcast. This is not a ploy to get money from you guys or nothing stupid like that. That's where I was like, man, I don't know. I'm so iffy on this shit, but it seems like it's a really legit company and a good way to go about it. So
yeah,
I'm excited about it, and we're basically going to throw a bunch of cool shit at you guys for doing this if you choose to do so. So,
more details to come on that. As it just started today, I think we're both still kind of working out the details.
We don't know what the fuck we're doing. Yeah, right. Exactly. And truthfully, I don't even know how to tell you where to go yet, but you could also go to our Facebook or Instagram and find a link, I'm sure, or our website. So, but anyway, that's that. I don't think we got any more plugs, man.
Okay.
And I think you're up and you're throwing an audible, right?
Well, it's kind of an audible. Okay, so with the timetable kind of the way that it is, we've kind of noticed that when we ended our fourth suggestion last week, we really only gave you guys like 3 days or so to kind of get on and vote for the new suggestions. And if, you didn't get to that, whatever. We didn't give a lot of time for voting. So I kind of came to the table to kind of stretch out that ability for people to kind of vote on what they wanted to listen to. So I picked a subject that I have always been very interested in. And it's kind of history based, and it's from my lineage of family. So I'm gonna, the episode tonight is Berserkers.
Right on.
the Viking Berserker is kind of like a legendary warrior, and there's been a lot of stories kind of in popular culture for years and years and years. But we're going to talk about the legend of the Berserker, where they came from, clear out some of the myths and legends, and kind of connect as many of the dots as we can. Obviously, some of these ideas about the Berserkers are really kind of based more on an oral tradition, and there is some writing about it, but basically a lot of the stories that you hear about these motherfuckers were not necessarily from the Norse or the Norwegian or the Viking side of things, where they did write about them, but you really get a lot of these stories from like people that got their asses handed to them by the Berserkers.
Dude, I'm excited about this. Before you get going, I had no idea what you were doing at all, and so we didn't even talk about it. So I love this because one, it's totally out of my knowledge base. Other than literally we joked about it in one of the episodes, like the show Vikings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like my knowledge of that time period, Berserkers, Vikings, Norse, whatever, is very limited, other than just what I've seen in film and shit, which always makes it super badass. And I know it's a brutal time period, I guess, to be alive. So I'm stoked about this one.
Yeah.
Berserk.
So for anybody who doesn't know, I'm actually I don't look it, but I'm 50% Norwegian. My mom is second generation American. Her family came from Norway. Her mom and her dad both came from Norway. And literally I have had conversations with Josh, with my wife, with my family about moving to Norway.
Going back home. That's right.
And I literally, dude, I would go in a fucking second. But anyway, that's a different conversation.
Right.
So the Northmen, or the Vikings as they are called, some people think it was just Norway that were the Vikings. It's actually the Scandinavian area. And they were a seafaring people. They were warrior tribes. And the culture basically consisted of multiple clans kind of thing. Each clan had a head, and then they all kind of like had a warrior king that kind of controlled the hearts and minds of the clans, but there would be a lot of infighting between clan to clan.
Just like the fucking TV show. So I know exactly what's going on. Fantastic.
Now, I will say that in that occasion, the Vikings TV show, they actually do try to stay within some realm of reality. There's definitely drama added, and
yeah, it's Hollywood,
artistic narrative and that type of thing. But for that concept of things, that they actually do hit the nail pretty square.
Sweet.
The big thing about the Vikings in general is when they first started getting on the scene, they would just show up in towns and just fucking destroy everything. They would take what they wanted, take what they needed, and then burn the fucking city to the ground.
Were they like brutal to the point where they were like raping and like, I know they were like pillaging and killing? Were they? I mean, was it pretty horrible?
Okay. So they were definitely very brutal to their adversaries.
Right.
I think we did the one episode where we were talking about the torture technique of the blood eagle.
Oh God.
And that was as much psychological terror as it was horrible for the person that they did it to. But if you saw people strung up in those blood eagle, for anyone who doesn't know, is a blood eagle is where they basically cut you down from the base of your spine down to your ass crack and then fillet your back open like wings and hang you up in trees and actually break the bones of your ribs outward. And you basically just die from shock, pain, blood loss, whatever it is. They didn't give a shit how you died, but they would leave people hung up like that. It was called the Blood Eagle.
It's so both badass and also absolutely fucking just like, oh god,
Right.
like horrific.
So the point of the Vikings when it came to warfare is they were a warrior-based group. Their belief was a man or woman who died in battle went to the highest level of what's called Valhalla, and it's the warrior's heaven, essentially. And only the people who died in battle, defending or pillaging, taking, only the bravest and meanest of soldiers would achieve that level of immortality, basically. So one notable thing about the Vikings is they had a very complex social system. A lot of people think, oh, these barbarians. No, man, it was much more equal playing field than a lot of the other cultures at the time when it came to men and women. Child rearing was much more about teaching the children skills of farming, sailing, crafting, those types of things, as opposed to men always do this and women always do this. You have like other clans that could attack you at any time. So children were taught skills on how to survive and hunt and kill. But they were also, very loving with their children and their wives and inside their own communities. When it came to those that they conquered, they didn't give much of a shit about them. Okay. And the intelligence behind it is, if we're going to go in and we're going to take everything that we want, I don't want to be looking in my rearview mirror for you to come back after me. So I'm going to kill everything and burn everything to the ground. So I'm not leaving enemies behind me that I'm going to have to deal with later.
Yeah, right.
Is essentially the thought process behind that. Okay. So that's kind of like a rough history of what the Vikings were when it came to the pillaging and those kind of stories of the Vikings.
Child rearing.
Child rearing. One thing I do.
I'm so glad that term didn't stick.
One thing I do have to kind of point out is that the Norse religion was very deity heavy. You had like trickster gods, you had the Allfather, which was Odin, but it was generally considered their gods were all generally human as the descriptors would go. Now that's important for a certain reason, and that's going to get me into the Berserkers. Okay, so the Berserkers are the elite of elite when it comes to the Viking warrior. Okay, the Berserker, to put it in today's terms, is like a Navy SEAL on meth and cocaine while tripping on acid. Like, literally, that is the best descriptor for them. Wow. The Berserkers were not part of the ranks of the Vikings. They were unleashed on battlefields because they could not be controlled.
They would probably kill anything in its way.
Yes, and there are many stories of Berserkers having to be killed by the Vikings because they couldn't get them to stop.
So, and is this question premature? How did they become
Berserkers?
Berserkers.
Okay, so the term Berserker, nobody really knows what it means, but basically breaking down language at the time and in the areas. A lot of people, this is kind of anticlimactic, but it literally, they think it translates to bear shirt. Okay. And the reason it translates to bear shirt is because the Berserkers, there were 3 different clans of Berserkers. There were bear, wolf, or boar. And these were animals that they would wear their skins, and that's it. They would not wear any armor into battle. Damn. Others would wear, protective armor and the idea, the legend of the Berserker is that arrows wouldn't hurt them, swords wouldn't hurt them, axes wouldn't hurt them, and that they would be seen chewing on the shields that were bound to their arm. And the reason I tell you the story of the Norse religion being kind of human-based, all of the Berserker clan, the people that were Berserkers, believed that when they killed one of these animals with their bare hands and wore their skin, they became that beast. So the top level, like your fucking tank fucking Berserkers who had killed bears with their bare hands, were like, you put those motherfuckers out and they're just out there to slaughter everything.
Right.
The wolf berserker was sent out as kind of just as brutal, but like sneaky brutal. Right. And then the wild boar were like considered kind of like rooting through, like fucking killing anything that like was injured, like, cleaning up the scraps. Like the 3 different groups were basically based on the trait of the animal that they donned their appearance from.
So were the Berserkers a member of their own clan, or did Berserkers belong to different clans, in other words? So some clans had Berserkers, or Berserkers were their own like little group or whatever. So
in some of the legends, the Berserkers were so sought after that Odin himself, the All-Father, used Berserkers as his protection when he would walk on Earth. So the reason that I brought up the part about Odin and the basically the human-based God resemblance is all of these, the bear, the wolf, the boar, they were part of a subsect of an animal cult that still existed in Norway.
Oh, right. Okay.
So let's say that you had a clan here and a clan there. Everybody kind of believed like, okay, Odin's the big god, right?
Right.
Well, along with that, you had these groups that were like, okay, well, I believe that Odin is this, but that dude's a little bit more brutal than the next guy, and this dude's a little bit more brutal than him, and so and so. So they would get taken into these animal cults, basically, and see how brutal they really were. Damn. And if they could prove themselves to wear the skins of the animals, then they became a berserker. Damn. Now, when it came to battle, here's the deal. This is where we get kind of the myth, the legend of the berserkers, is so they would get basically wasted on massive amounts of what's called some kind of hallucinogenic mushroom. Damn. And alcohol. And they would be heard like screaming and chanting in their own little groups before battles would start, which would basically scare the fucking shit out of everyone that came in contact with them. The Romans themselves, who were very adept at battle, and battle on large scales did not want to fuck with the Vikings because of having to deal with berserkers.
I don't blame them, dude.
They had no self-preservation.
Right.
They literally, the Vikings themselves, like battles would be over, they would win, and they would have to, sometimes they would have to put down their own people because it was like, we can't get this motherfucker to stop, and he's killing our own people.
Yeah, right. We're the only things left alive, so we're next. I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
wow.
that's
Does the term that we know it, berserk, to go berserk, is this stem from?
yeah. The term, like if somebody's going berserk, comes from an amalgamation of that word.
Berserker. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So they think it means bear shirt, but what it really meant was they were the crazy fucks who didn't show up in armor. And I don't know about you, but like if I were in one of those like old school battles and I'm like sitting there in a helmet and I got a fucking shield and a spear and I see a naked dude running across the fucking battlefield with an axe and a shield and nothing else, like no armor, like balls deep in the fucking mud, just slaughtering motherfuckers. And you know, so there's arguments that when axes would break or they would lose their sword or they, you know, whatever it was, that they then resorted to whatever means they had in front of them. So they would take helmets off the battlefield, they would take disembodied limbs, other people's heads. They're known to tear a man's throat out with their hands or their teeth. They literally ravaged like animals and would not. And when they were in battle mode, you could not give them orders. You could not speak to them. Like they did not speak in any language that was decipherable. But the weird thing is, like the different clans, the different groups would be able to communicate.
Wow.
And it was like through grunts and growls and that type of shit. But they would move as a unit. These berserkers would move as a unit. But it was all with rage, like a blood rage.
Yeah. Wow.
So
I mean, I can totally picture just that, you know, that sort of just pure violence and just crazy. I mean, just literally no regard for anything. That's pretty wild. It's terrifying, dude. I agree. I don't care how much armor I'm wearing. I'm hiding. I'm playing dead. I'm doing something, hoping the boar doesn't get me.
Yeah, so the idea, well, the fucking boar would go after you. If you're hiding and playing dead, the boar's getting you first.
That's what I mean. Well, hopefully the boar didn't see me playing dead. I don't know, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but
the
idea,
be done for. I wouldn't make it.
But the idea was like, so like when you see in movies and stuff, the representation of a berserker, it's actually of the many different types of Viking stories, that's probably one of the most watered down versions of something that you would see about them. They were literally almost a last resort kind of a weapon.
Wow.
Like if they were just doing general raiding, they wouldn't unleash their berserkers. They were too valuable and too brutal.
Right. And so like and we can't forget that normal Vikings knew how to fight and were badasses. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like if you had to call in a berserker, that means whoa. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so kind of like when I was talking about the Blood Eagle thing.
Yeah,
the Vikings were very intelligent when it came to letting people go and letting people survive. Because nothing will kill morale of your opponent like horror stories from people who had survived these encounters. So if you're going to raid a village, you're not really that worried about it. You got longboats full of dudes who know how to handle themselves and fuck shit up. And you're basically probably not running into that much of a resistance if you're just raiding shore towns. But when England or the Romans started getting tired of getting raided, they would go into, you know, northern territory, and then the Viking leaders and clan leaders and king would say, all right, now it's time to send a message, and would unleash their berserkers into the field. And you got to imagine the first handful of times that they saw this shit happen, they're like, why are they sending 5 dudes out on the field? And then all of a sudden, like, they're like, oh, we just hit that guy with like 5 arrows and he's still coming. Like,
oh dear God. Yeah.
So,
so I mean, was it? Do you think the arrow thing? I mean, I know this is somewhat not mythology completely, but it's stories passed down. So, do you think the arrows and the swords, is it because of the hides of the animal was actually more protective, or do you just think they were so out of their mind that they felt no pain because of adrenaline and whatever?
I think it was probably more adrenaline. Okay, so this is going to be I'm going to tell 2 stories to explain this story. Okay, it's going to be a little weird, but that's how we're going to do this bit. All right. So the way an arrow kills is blood loss. Okay. The way that a bullet kills is basically physics. It's impact, it's shock wave. So a bullet hits the body, and that shock wave goes through the body and ruptures organs, and it'll definitely poke holes in you. And if it pokes holes in the right organs, it's going to kill you faster. But stopping power of a bullet is the impact. That's what knocks people down and breaks bones and fucks shit up. Arrow is going to hit you hard, but the point of the arrow is to slice up the insides when it hits you, right? So when you have a high adrenaline level, your body sucks all the blood into the center of the body, right? So if you're getting hit in the arms and legs, there's not as much blood in those pieces of your body because your body's trying to protect the organs and the internal, the center, the core of the body. So even if you do get hit in the chest and stuff, it's already got the blood pulled out of the muscles, right? So that is one reason that I think that it was probably a little bit more helpful for them.
Well, also, like, hey, Braveheart taught me that you don't pull the arrow back out, you dumb shits. You break it off, and then when you pull it out when you're ready to burn it afterward, you know what I'm saying? Because the pulling it out is where the blood law, it does more damage. Between the hallucinogens and the alcohol, I would imagine that they didn't feel a whole lot with adrenaline pumping. Right. And which is why they could kind of push through a little bit differently than if it's you or me and we're rationally thinking about something and you see an arrow sticking out of you, panic sets in, shock sets in, those kind of things set in. If you're out of your fucking mind, you're like, fuck it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. Like, I'm going to kill the guy who just hit me with an arrow. Right. And so that, I think that's a portion of it. Now, that makes sense. Another thing that would happen, like the second part of, I said I was going to tell 2 stories. Here's the second story. So in Vietnam, what happened a lot of times with the Vietnamese warriors is, and why they are actually as fucking strong against the United States and all the other countries that they repelled, was what they would do is they would get a lot of their dudes high as shit on heroin and fucking tourniquet off the arms and legs and just send them out into the battlefield so that when they would get shot, they didn't feel anything from the heroin. And then you're not bleeding out as fast because you got all your shit tourniquet off. So I would say it's kind of a mixture of those 2 things.
That's crazy as hell. I mean, I can't hold my gun. My arms are asleep.
Yeah, but what are you fucking expect? Well, yeah, but the point is to create chaos.
No, yeah, I get it.
you create chaos in the battlefield, and you're trying, the war, the general's trying to figure out, okay, how do I deal with this mess that's in the middle? And while you're dealing with the mess in the middle, shit's going on, getting you wiped out around your flanks.
That's next level crazy. Like that. Damn, dude.
So I think it was probably a combination of that. But it was, they were used as a fear tactic, man. They were used directly to scare the fuck out of everybody on the battlefield. And a lot of times their own people, like, you better be doing what the fuck you're supposed to be doing, because if you fall too far, like if you fuck up, then you're stuck in the middle with the fucking crazy who doesn't give a shit if you're on his side.
Right.
He doesn't remember that your name.
Yeah, man. That might be even more terrifying, like being like, oh fuck, oh god, you know what I mean? Hey, we're winning, but shit, they're running out of bad guys to kill. Like, I gotta hold back a little bit.
Yeah, like, let's slow down a little bit, and
they're doing fine. Wow.
But so I kind of picked this subject because it's, like awesome. I said, this is a subject that, you kind of hear like the myths and the legends about it. I think this is realistically, like, some of the stories probably doused in a fair amount of the telephone game that we've talked about previously.
Right. Of course.
But there are definitely like stories from both sides. You get stories from the Viking side about these berserkers, and then you get the stories from the people that were conquered or beaten or had to meet them on the battlefield, and a lot of those stories match up.
Well, and that's the thing, that's what we always talk about, or we've talked about a few times. If a whole bunch of stories are similar enough, then there's some validation, there's some, okay,
right.
I'll go with that. It makes sense. Something's got to be accurate, you know what I mean?
Right. I'm not saying 100% of it's true, right, but I'm saying enough of those details are present on both sides of the conversation for it to at least garner where we get this legend.
Yeah, right.
And like, like I was saying, like, they show and a lot of this has to do with like Hollywood and shit, where there are these, like, they were not considered thinking. They were not considered highly tactical. They were a wrecking ball released into the middle of fucking chaos to destroy everything in its way.
I have one more question. I don't, this could take us too long or too far, or maybe you don't even know the answer, but like, are you groomed to become a berserker? Like, I guess that's where I'm trying to figure out. Like, I'm picturing these like wildlings, like from fucking, what do you call it, Game of Thrones. Like where do these people come from? Is this like you're just that big and you've won that many battles that we're basically, you're going to be who we're training to be a berserker? Or where is it?
Well, I mean, a lot of it has to do with those cults. Like, and when I say that, like, they started the kids at a young age, like, learning how to protect themselves. There definitely show periods where, there's kids who show more of an aptitude for tactics, or then they're going to show kids who are brutal strength. And,
wow.
You'll see in like certain areas, like, you can have, somebody who is a brilliant tactical fighter, but if you've got somebody who is just rage of muscle and brutality,
yeah,
a lot of times that rage and brutality can if it doesn't hold your own, then right, it definitely kind of will win out in some
essentially some people are just built that way, and you're meant to be. That's just
right.
They weren't kids that were raised and kept in cages and prodded to be pissed off and groomed. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out how did they become that crazy? And obviously the drugs or whatever, the hallucinogens and the alcohol induce that, or make that, intensify that.
Right. So I was a little incorrect at the beginning. So like the Boar Warriors, they were actually sent out first. They were sent out as like the nose of the wedge. So like when they would go running out on the field, then the rest of the formation would kind of come out behind them. But the Bear Warriors were definitely considered the power houses of they're basically like the tank of the
yeah, right,
the squad. Yeah. But so like when you're teaching these kids how to fight and how to grow up, it's like you're going to subdivide them. Like, okay, this kid is showing these skills, these more brutal kids are showing these skills. Let's kind of start grooming them for maybe a little bit more brutal side of things.
And I'm assuming that the bear, one, you killed a bear, you've got to be huge.
Yeah.
So like I would not fall into the role of bear no matter how good I was at fighting. Like I don't, you know what I'm saying? Maybe a wolf, maybe a little bit quicker because I'm small, but I get it. You're somewhat trained, but at the end, not everybody can fill. I can't be trained to do some shit.
Right. Well, so the ones who would be on the hallucinogenic cocktail, but would still communicate, were considered the wolves because they were pack fighters. They would overwhelm in groups and slaughter that way, where the boar was kind of like, I'm going to lead these groups in certain directions and, be kind of furious in that way. The wolves were kind of a pack hunter. Like you'd get those groups of the wolf berserkers together to kind of overwhelm certain areas with their brutality. And then the bear warrior was literally like the solo, fuck you, drop him off and just watch him massacre.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I mean, again, a ton of this stuff is, we obviously didn't have like cameras back in the day.
What a shame.
Yeah, we didn't. We only know what kind of came from the stories of the past. But I felt like this was a story that you kind of see and hear. Probably don't get a lot of the actual.
Well, no, yeah, dude. Like I said, I had no clue what a berserker actually did. I mean, if somebody had said, what's a berserker, I would have probably guessed it's some sort of wild warrior. I mean, I knew a little, whatever. But so I had no idea the wolf, the any of that. So, dude, this was fascinating for me. I always like learning new shit anyway, which happens every time you do an episode. But any kind of like, I love war history as far as war goes, and especially the non-U.S. history, the stuff that I don't know much about. Like they don't teach you about berserkers in history that I remember.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
So here's a quote, and this is a translation from. There's so many weird letters in this I couldn't pronounce it if my life depended on it. Harold Skolofskin. The saga describes Harald's berserkers, and it says this. It says, "I'll ask of the berserkers, you tasters of blood, those intrepid heroes who are treated. How are they treated? Those who wade out into battle. Wolfskin they are called. In battle, they bear bloody shields, red with blood, and their spears when they come to the fight. They form in a close group. The prince in his wisdom puts trust in such men who can hack through the enemy's shields. The tasters of blood."
Damn. The tasters of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're horrifying, but they're also like really like just it sounds badass. You know what I mean? It's like as long as you're, I guess, not on the other end of their shield or whatever, that they're badass.
yeah, they were definitely like I wouldn't want to fuck with them. Like I
Yeah,
wouldn't, like and honestly, I think even if I was on their side, like if a battle started up and I was like going out there and they're like, oh, we're getting ready to release the Berserker crew, I'd be like, fuck, like. Are we
well,
there? Has anyone tried talking to the other side? Like,
right.
do we need to release these
Nah,
these
I'd be
guys?
like, hey, I'm gonna run to the, I'm gonna go hit the head real quick.
Yeah,
I gotta,
I'm going to kind of stay on the sides a little bit more.
right.
I think
I
today.
want to be an archer, like from the back, the archery.
Yeah. So the Wolf Warriors appear in legends from the Indo-Europeans, the Turks, the Mongols, and even the Native American cultures have representations of them in their drawings. Because and not to have this conversation, but anybody that still believes that Christopher Columbus is the one who found America, like I don't know, read any book that's been written about that in the last 30 years.
That's funny.
I think even when I was going through school many moons ago, they were like, this is probably wrong.
Some just this isn't right. So what I was wondering is Berserkers, do they have any I assume every image is
They're
drawn or
all
fictitious.
all the images that you see of what is considered a berserker are like on woodcuts and
Right.
stamped in metal. Like there's no like I'm yet to see a painting of one. There's a few.
There's a bunch of artwork, but of course artwork is that's artistic license, so you don't there's no
Yeah.
you know.
So literally, like how the Egyptians have like all the gods that like look like a fucking alligator or look like this or look like that.
Right.
These berserkers usually are all shown like with a kind of a human body to some extent, but then the head of like a bear or a wolf or a boar.
Right.
And I'll send so you can post them up on the interweb. I'll post you some pictures of
Yeah, cool. Well, I always like to look at images. Some of the topics that we do, I like to look at images. Let me. So I was just curious, but yeah, I see the carvings, and yeah, basically it's the head of a beast. Some sort of animal. Yeah, it's still cool. And the artwork is rad. I mean, obviously, just if you read any of this or after your time, if I was to draw a picture based on what you just did, it would look a lot like these wild ones. So it's pretty cool, man. This was a kick-ass topic, dude. You never even mentioned this to me, so it was a nice surprise.
Yeah, I've been kind of like workshopping this to some extent for quite some time. I wanted to kind of do. To me, the Viking story is too big for me to do like kind of all at once,
Right.
like that, and kind of encompass all the things I want. Because I mean, not only do you have the Vikings, then you can do the whole subset like the Viking religion, which is crazy and awesome.
Yeah.
And so I felt like Berserkers was its own topic. Outside of that doesn't mean that one of us won't do a Viking episode on the reality of what the Vikings were and kind of how they existed. It doesn't mean that
I'm
we're not
pretty
going
sure
to.
I won't do that because you'll just correct me the entire time. So
I'm not saying that we won't do Norse gods. My volley into the Norse kind of world was I wanted to do one subject and I wanted to do their top fucking rung of their warriors.
yeah.
And literally considered probably one of history's most feared adversaries on the battlefield. Even, compared to every other culture at that time period. I don't know that there's any other warrior-based system that carried that kind of like wowed
Intimidation or fear.
intimidation and fear as the Viking Berserker.
Yeah, sorry, I can't think of a single warrior, fictitious or not, or historical or not, that is more impressive just as far as a warrior than that. I mean, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I haven't heard or don't know of half of the fucking warriors in the history of, our world. But to me, these are by far, if I put myself on the battlefield, this is the scariest motherfucker I've ever heard of.
Well, you've got your Spartan warriors, like you had the Trojan warrior, you have like a lot of these groups that were very like specialized. The Berserker was just that, man. They were fucking there to terrorize and just destroy and decimate people. And
that's why it's terrifying. I think, samurais are amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck, dude, one of our favorite movies. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're amazing warriors. The Trojans, but all that, they're too human for me to compare to this. Like, this is almost it takes on for me, in my mind, the form of that animal more than a human. And so therefore, all bets are off because you don't know what they're going to do next. There's no way to fight it. Like, you're fucked. Like, you may be badass and skilled, but dude, they're not coming. Like, if you're an MMA fighter, they're not going to grapple with you, dude.
No, they're gonna, like, if they don't have an option, they're gonna try to rip your throat out with their teeth.
They're jumping on you and biting. Right, exactly.
There is no honor. There is no, the man. There's a man down. Like, there's no fucking.
I said timeout, dude. I said timeout.
No Geneva Convention. No fucking. There's no timeout. There's no, dude. No holds barred. These guys would fucking slaughter. That was their job, to slaughter and to do it well, and they did.
And that's why it's, to me, I'm like, yeah, it's the most. I like that. I said impressive. I'm gonna stick with that because it is. I mean, as far as a warrior goes, like, whew, cool, good shit, man.
So
I hope that there's some good. I don't know if there's any. Do you know of a good film that actually portrays the Berserkers well?
I mean, honestly, like I don't know that there's anything out there that does them the justice of history.
Right, that's what I was just wondering, because I'd love to watch a movie just knowing, it's just going to be fun.
I think it would be hard for fucking Hollywood or any country to basically portray a character that is just like, it's like throwing 10 fucking leather faces onto a battlefield.
Right.
And just watching them slaughter, like, it'd be like, oh shit, well, that got out of hand quickly.
Whoa.
Like, yeah. I think it's hard for Hollywood or anyone to take a human, make them this warrior, but take the humanity out of them completely.
Right.
Like, and that is what makes this difficult, I think.
That could be a good horror film, actually.
Just removing the humanity. Zombies are pretty close to that, I would imagine.
Well, that's true. I mean,
fast zombies, right?
Oh shit!
There should never be fast zombies, by the way.
No.
It's good for horror movies, but there aren't fast. Like if zombies happen, fast zombies wouldn't exist. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. You're good. You could speed walk away.
Yeah, everybody can sleep okay at night.
Yeah, that's right. Oh shit! All right, man. Well, damn, that was good.
So, episode. Raining Blood, the Berserkers.
Love it. All right, man. Well, shit. Nice audible. I don't know what I'm doing next week, but we'll probably end up doing the chosen or the number one voted the following week, I would imagine, to give everybody about another week. So keep voting because we want to. we want to do whatever you guys want to hear.
Right.
Right?
So I hope you guys enjoyed my Audible.
I did. So if they didn't, fuck them. I had a good time. That's what matters, right?
Right.
No, not at all. But yeah, that was awesome, man. Good shit, dude.
All right. Later.
All right, later, bud.